He leaned back in his chair as though victory had already been etched into stone. His smile curled into something rehearsed, sharp at the edges, the kind of expression designed not for joy but for intimidation. Across the courtroom, his voice sliced through the stale air like a blade. The prenuptial agreement is ironclad. The judge scribbled a note without lifting his eyes. His lawyer straightened his tie with a smugness that only comes from believing the game is already over. They had prepared themselves for a performance, a show in which I was meant to be the loser. But I, Christopher, didn't respond with words. Words are fragile in a place like that. They can be twisted, pulled apart, mocked, or dismissed. Instead, I did something quieter, something sharper. I pushed a single piece of paper across the polished surface of the table, pointed with one calm finger at a paragraph buried deep within the text, and leaned back in silence. That silence carried weight. It was not hesitation, not weakness, but a silence honed from years of observation, patience, and strategy. The courtroom seemed to shrink around us in that instant. And then it happened. Her lawyer, confident, arrogant, self-assured, read the words. His face drained of color, his lips moved without sound, and for the first time, the mask slipped. He leaned toward her, gripped her wrist with a hand that betrayed desperation, and whispered words that cut through the theater they had staged. The house, the accounts, what did you do? Her eyes faltered. For a moment, she looked not like the woman who had marched in here in designer silk with victory written across her walk, but like the woman I had first met years ago, when her smile wasn't a weapon. I met her at a charity gala. I can still see it. The grand chandeliers scattering light like falling stars, the clinking of glasses, the murmur of wealth and pretense. I was still climbing then, brick by brick, building a company out of vision, hunger, and long nights that stretched into dawn. She was luminous, polished, untouchable. She had that aura, that magnetism that pulled every gaze in the room. And somehow, she looked at me. Not just looked, saw me. Or so I thought. Back then, she called me her visionary. She whispered that she believed in me, that we were a team. I let those words seep into my bones, let them carry me through the endless work, the sacrifices, the sleepless nights. I believed. Years passed. The weight of our life rested on my shoulders, while she basked in the glitter of its rewards, designer handbags, luxury trips she claimed were therapy for her mental health, weekends away with friends whose names I never heard twice. I convinced myself it was balance. That this was how partnerships worked. That my labor and her leisure were two halves of a whole. I told myself that love was sacrifice, that giving more was proof of commitment. But cracks don't announce themselves loudly. They creep. They whisper. They form in places you tell yourself don't matter, late night, business dinners, that ended well past midnight. The phone she always placed face down when I entered the room, the faint trace of unfamiliar cologne in her car. I noticed, but I did not confront her. Instead, I observed. I listened. I collected. And then came the night that changed everything. I lay in bed pretending to sleep while her laughter floated from behind the bathroom door. She was speaking in a low, playful voice, unaware of how each word slid into me like a knife. Once it's done, the house is mine. He won't see it coming. He's too soft. That night, I didn't close my eyes. By dawn, I was no longer the man she believed I was. I wasn't her soft husband. I was something colder, something sharpened by betrayal. She thought the prenuptial agreement was her weapon, her shield. She had insisted on it before the wedding, cloaking it in the language of fairness, of security for both of us. But I saw through it. It was her escape hatch, a contract tilted against me, designed to leave me with nothing if she ever decided the life she had was no longer enough. She thought she was clever. She thought she had trapped me. But she underestimated me. Months before the wedding, while the lawyers traded drafts of the prenup back and forth, I had made a move she never saw coming. I introduced a clause, buried under dense legal language, hidden within the folds of technicalities that few people read carefully. It was small, almost invisible, but it redefined marital assets. It stated that any property, account, or asset concealed, transferred, or claimed through deception would immediately and irrevocably pass into my ownership. A quiet safeguard. An invisible blade waiting in the shadows. She didn't notice. Her lawyer didn't notice. No one noticed. And so, the stage was set long before the curtains rose on this courtroom drama. She entered the courthouse that morning draped in arrogance, wearing a dress worth more than most people's annual salaries, convinced that this was her coronation. She had drained accounts into her sister's name, shifted property titles behind my back, orchestrated her betrayal with the precision of a thief. She thought she had me cornered, that her mask of confidence was unbreakable. But greed is a poor strategist. When her lawyer's eyes landed on that hidden clause, I saw the truth ripple through him like an earthquake. His throat tightened, his composure cracked, and he knew instantly that the ground beneath them had collapsed. The judge leaned forward, curious, intrigued. Her lawyer stammered, reaching for a loophole that didn't exist. The language was airtight. My language. Her smile faltered for the first time. Her perfect lips trembled. She leaned toward him, venom laced in her whisper. Fix it. But there was nothing to fix. I didn't need to raise my voice. My silence was louder than any outburst. Every passing second was a blade twisting deeper into the illusion she had built. The accounts she thought were hidden? Mine. The properties she thought untouchable? Mine. Every secret move she had made in shadows had been pulled into the light, documented, undeniable, and now legally transferred to my name. Her lawyer's whispers shifted from her to himself. The house, the accounts, what did you do? The realization hit her like a thunderclap. Everything she had schemed to steal had already slipped through her fingers. The judgment came quickly. The prenup she thought would cripple me instead dismantled her. The house, once weaponized in her whispered conspiracies, returned to me. The accounts she siphoned into secrecy flowed back under my control. Even the assets she believed invisible were branded with fraud, staining her credibility beyond repair. She left the courtroom broken, pale, trembling. No designer dress, no arrogant smile, no victory march, only silence trailing her steps. I watched her go. I felt no joy, no rage, no triumph. Only calm. Cold, precise calm. She had wanted a war, but wars are noisy, brutal, and wasteful. I gave her something sharper: silence, patience, and strategy. She thought betrayal was her game. She forgot that I, too, knew how to play. People ask me now if I regret it. If I regret the years, the sacrifices, the blind devotion. My answer is simple. No. Because in the end, betrayal did what love could not. It opened my eyes. Love can blind you. It can soften your edges, dull your instincts, make you believe in fairy tales whispered in the dark. But betrayal, it sharpens. It clears the fog. It teaches with ruthless precision. And once you see with that clarity, revenge doesn't need to be plotted. It writes itself, carved into the pages of history with ink that cannot fade. I walked out of that courthouse not as the man she thought she had destroyed, but as the man she unknowingly created, someone stronger, colder, untouchable. And her greatest mistake? Believing she was playing against a fool. Because while she smiled, schemed, and underestimated me, I was writing the ending of her story with nothing more than patience, silence, and a single clause in a contract she never bothered to read. And in the end, that silence was the loudest answer she would ever receive. If this story of betrayal, strategy, and poetic justice struck you, don't just scroll away. Share it, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more stories where the underestimated rise, the betrayed reclaim their power, and the truth cuts deeper than any lie. Your support keeps these stories alive. Let's keep telling them together.